On my last year of JET, not too long after 9/11, a memo came across my desk with a special assignment regarding the 2002 World Cup that was being held in Japan. And this is my last year, and I was feeling kind of sad about the prospect of leaving Kobe, where I'd been living for the last 3 years. So it came at a really good time. I needed a little bit of inspiration. And my assignment was to go work with the staff of the conference center and the newly built Westin on Awaji Island. Has anybody been to this big conference center? Hyogo, give it up. Okay, great. Okay, great. It's a really, Hyogo, good. It's a really big conference center, and it was built after the earthquake. And the staff, they were really nervous because they were going to be hosting the England national team during the World Cup. So my job was to go and help them with language, culture preparation, security, logistics, you name it. So once a week, I would head from my office in Kobe and take the bus over the big Akashikaikyo Bridge. Anyone been across the bridge? Great. It's one of the longest suspension bridges in the world. And I would ride with my coworker, Arima-san, who lived there. And it was kind of a chance every week to debrief about like everything that was bothering us, about our bosses, and our friends and our lives. And so I would go out to the Westin. And when I got there, I realized the staff were genuinely really nervous because in 2002, if you're talking about the England national team, what you're really talking about is David Beckham. And at the time, David Beckham, we called him Beckham-sama, right? He was really big deal. This was sort of the beginning of his arc of being quite popular in Japan. So I was working with the staff, and we're working on language and culture. And one day, someone said to me, Kirsten, can we get together after work? You know, which in Japan is code for like, we need to talk to you about something that we can't talk to you about during the training. And I was like, sure. So we went out for drinks and tea, and one of the most senior staff people at this really big conference center pulled me aside and was like, the number one thing I'm worried about is when David Beckham shows up, I'm gonna faint because I am in love with him. This woman is like in her 50s. And then nothing. There's nothing wrong with this at all. But what was going on in my mind is like, like I didn't know the level, right, of what we were talking about. So we ended up doing a lot of like breathing exercises and visualization to make this work. In addition, we had all of our, cultural language training. The other piece she told me was, Kirsten, we're really happy you're here, but we're not sure that we can actually understand what David Beckham is saying. And you don't talk like David Beckham. So what are we gonna do? And I'm like, all right, I'm on this. So this is before the days of like YouTube and DVRing and the TiVo and all this. So what I would do is I go home to my apartment. Anytime David Beckham came on my television, I would press record on my VCR, and I would capture as much of David Beckham as I could possibly do. My neighbor upstairs was a CIR from England, thank God, and he had satellite television. So we called his family. We didn't, it's not like any of this was on the internet. So we called his family, we got like the download for the British telly schedule. Any interview that David Beckham had coming up, we programmed it into Nick's VCR. So every week I would take my tapes and I would go across the bridge with Arima-san, we'd talk about our week, and then we'd go through as much footage as possible as we could of David Beckham talking. And I have to say that for a kid from the suburbs of Seattle, I'm pretty good now at interpreting whatever David Beckham says. David Beckham had a hairstyle like a dinosaur. I don't know if everyone remembers this. So I don't have the hots for David Beckham. And I never have, and everyone in the group was really confused about this, but it worked well. So I got to know this group quite well through our drinking and tea sessions afterwards, and I began to realize that the pressure they were under wasn't just about David Beckham's accent, and it wasn't just about the pressure of the England national team. It was really about them wanting to show to the world that Awajishima was recovering from the big earthquake in 1995. This is one of the biggest event centers that had been built since the disaster. And for those of you that don't know, Awajishima was one of the epicenters of the big earthquake. And the 1995 earthquake was the reason that I originally came to Japan. So the pressure that they were under, I think, was to show everybody on the island and in the region and in the world that Awaji Island was healthy and recovering, and that they were all, as human beings, healthy and recovering. And I loved these conversations because the truth was, like, I was coming to the end of my time on JET, and I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. And I think everybody here in the room has been there, right? And I wasn't sure what it was going to be like to go back to New York. I had gone to college here, and I wasn't sure what it would be like to go back to New York in a world that was, post 9/11. But being able to talk about our stories, I realized that the healing process they had been on, I think, really encouraged me to take my own leap of faith. And I was able to not only take care of them, but I was able to kind of leave this cocoon of Kobe that I've been living in for the last 3 years. So needless to say, David Beckham came. Nobody fainted. He gave rave reviews. I've never actually met him, which is just fine with me. And I actually ended up taking a job later at Park Hyatt in Tokyo as a result of these guys. And that is a story for another day. Thank you.